Welcome to the Independent Dealer Podcast with hosts Luke Godwin and Jeff Watson, a podcast by dealers for dealers. Here we go.
I'm Brett Scott. I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for the association. To give you some background of who I am and where I came from. For the past 2 years previously to coming here, I was a Senior Policy Advisor or Senior Government Affairs Officer for Secretary Chow at Department of Transportation. Okay. And then my portfolio at the department was covered maritime, railroads, trucking, NHTSA, just a pretty broad portfolio.
A lot of transportation.
A lot of transportation. That's my thing is transportation.
Wow. Are you a DC guy? Have you always been a DC or?
Yeah, born and raised in DC.
Whoa.
I'm in the outskirts now. I'm in Annapolis.
Okay.
But that's like 20 miles outside, but give or take the time of day.
Okay.
It could range from an hour to 30
Or
minutes.
COVID traffic, no COVID traffic.
COVID traffic,
right?
yeah, 15 minutes, pandemic traffic. But previously to the administration, I was doing lobbying work for an association called Cruise Lines International Association. So that association covered about 95% of the cruising around the world.
Aren't you glad you got out of that in time?
That's what everybody has told me since.
Sounds like a mess
since
right
I
now.
came at DOT, and then did that for close to 2 years.
Okay.
And then previously to that, I was doing lobbying as well, federal affairs and state affairs for a shipping company called AP Muller Maersk.
Okay.
Big star, big blue holes.
Okay.
They were also the shipping company from the movie Captain Phillips.
Oh yeah.
So
we met that guy here a couple years ago.
Oh, did you really?
Convention. Yeah, cool guy.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
So let's talk about what dealers need to know. I think the first place to start is the PAC.
Yeah.
Because the PAC is super important. Dealers may not know out there what a PAC is. What is the NIADA PAC and how is it used?
Sure. So the PAC is our way of being. There's an old saying in DC that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so the PAC provides our members the chance to be at the table, rather than being on the menu. And that gives us not only the chance to contribute to a member of Congress in the Senate or House side that has been an advocate for us in the past, or could potentially be an advocate for us in the future. And in doing meetings with our fly-ins, the National Policy Conference, not only are we going to be meeting with members of Congress and explaining to them our concerns and what's worrying us, but then we could potentially do events, right? Similar to what we'll talk about later is the Coffee with Congress.
Okay.
And the PAC just provides our members, like I mentioned, the chance to have the seat at the table, to be the authoritative voice for the used car industry, and to be the front lines to members of Congress.
And that money comes from dealers like us. We have to give to the PAC individually.
Yep.
So we get money there. I make it a point. I give money every month to the PAC because I believe it's super important for us to do. And dealers out there who aren't doing it, you need to be giving money because, as he said, if we aren't at the table, we're on the table, right? We're getting eaten. So with the new administration that has come in, things have changed a little bit.
Yep. And allies are more important now than there were, ever before. So yeah, I mean that's the PAC. That's hopefully unfortunately we couldn't do an MPC live this year. We're doing our Coffees with Congress.
What is that? Talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So Coffees with Congress is another way that our members can have front and center, 35 to an hour long conversations with a member of Congress. And we've started those just because we weren't doing a live conference this year. But we're actually going to continue these Coffees with Congress even into next year, even when we're doing a live MPC.
So next year MPC?
Next year MPC. But these, like I mentioned, these events are just the opportunity for members to engage with their local representatives in their districts. So we started off with a few in Alabama, Congressman Adderhall, Congressman Mike Rogers, and they were narrowed down into those members that are specific to his district, right? As elections are becoming closer and closer in vote counts, members are looking at the best option or the best way to interact with their constituents, right? Nowadays, elections are won by, local elections are won by 1, 2, 3, 5 votes. Then you have larger midterm elections that could be won by 100 votes. And so members are trying to engage as much as possible with their specific constituents, and we're trying to bring that to them. So these events, we originally started off to be pretty narrow in scope, directly to the constituents, our members that are in, say, Congressman Anholt's district. But now we've kind of broadened it out. We're including AECs, we're including the legislative board, we're including the board in general, we're including state presidents, and just having the opportunity to engage with as many members of Congress and with as possible.
And then when we do need them and need them to be allies, we can just go to them and say, hey, remember that time we talked? Remember that check we gave you? And,
exactly.
Right.
It's similar to what we had today at the convention.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Congressman Buddy Carter was recently on our Conference of Congress. He's been great. His staff has been phenomenal. And, I thought, why not have him come to our convention? Unfortunately, it was virtual because the House was in session.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have him speak and engage with our members. And we have a good amount of membership in Georgia, in his district as well. And so it's great to have him see who his potential constituents are, engage with us, and then when we do have the live policy conference and we have a meeting with him, he's like, I know the NIADA guys.
Right.
Like, I want to be in that meeting.
They recognize the name, but even better is you're educating them too, right?
Exactly.
So when they say, hey, we have an issue like, national recalls, we're going to ground every car with an open recall, you can come in, or the dealer, even better, can go to him and say, hey, here's why that's bad.
Exactly.
You might think this is a good idea from that side that you've heard, but here, let me tell you from the ground as a business owner, here's what bad. What else are you seeing in D.C. right now that needs to be on our radar?
I think the
or
biggest
on your
thing,
radar.
Sure. I think the biggest thing that took up a lot of my bandwidth coming on into this role was recalls, and that's what I heard a lot of dealers saying is we're worried about recalls because with the Democrat House, Democrat Senate, Democrat White House, it was kind of the perfect storm for this particular legislation to get passed. Thankfully, in coordination with NADA and Cox and NAAA, we were able to proactively engage with members of Congress on the Senate side as they were drafting up their portion of the infrastructure bill to make sure that recalls wasn't included.
Yeah, that could have been.
Maybe dealers out there don't understand what was trying to be done with recalls.
Sure.
And as I understand is Blumenthal maybe, was that right, wanted to essentially, if a car had an open recall, you couldn't sell it. You couldn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And did we finally get him to understand what that would do to a car, or maybe or car's value, or did other people kind of say, hey, we're just not going to do that?
Yeah, I think what our approach is that we had meetings with Senator Blumenthal, and to answer your question, the recall language that he was promoting was the prohibit you could not sell a car with an open recall, sell it or lease it, period. So not only was it hurting us as our members, but it was hurting the auctions. It was hurting.
It was going to hurt individuals.
Can you imagine how many cars would be grounded?
Oh my gosh.
Well, exactly. And so we were focused on, of course, meeting with his staff and trying to explain our position. Yeah. But then we focused on moderate Democrats, Senator Sinema, Manchin, Tester out of Montana, West Virginia, and so we focused on those moderate Democrats that understood, the consequences exactly of this bill, especially as our members are slowly getting back onto their feet, but post-pandemic.
Yeah.
And they were understanding it and they understood it, and so thankfully when not only our lobbying efforts, but when the White House was saying that they want to have a bipartisan infrastructure bill, well, bipartisan needs more than 50 votes.
Yeah.
Especially in the Senate. So no recall language is going to be included because it needs to be bipartisan.
Beside recalls in the infrastructure bill, is there anything that the car dealers can look to that may help our industry with the infrastructure bill? Is there anything in there that could help us sell more cars or do something different than what we currently do, you think?
Not to my knowledge, I don't think so. I think the main focus is making sure that the recalls wasn't included.
Okay.
It provides for an EV infrastructure, right?
It does, and
so that could help us mainstream EVs if we are a dealer that wants to get into EVs.
Maybe.
If that.
Yeah,
building out more charging stations in your neighborhood and making them more usable, I guess.
Right, and I think Biden's proposal originally, infrastructure proposal, I should say, had the we were calling it Cash for Clunkers 2.0, where it had this stipend where it kind of forced people to trade in gas-powered vehicles for EVs, and you would receive a $12,500 stipend.
Woo!
It was a lot.
And there's not enough EVs to handle that volume.
Exactly, and we were,
Ooh, goodness.
In addition to lobbying on recalls, we were saying, well, we understand the need or the want to go electric, but one, the infrastructure isn't there, right?
Yeah.
You're as all of us know, when you're traveling to visit family up and down the East Coast or wherever you're going, and you stop at a rest stop or a gas station, and you see 5 charging stations, but 50 cars waiting for those 5 charging stations. Clearly, it's showing that the infrastructure isn't there. And look, it's great, but don't force people to do it. Let people slowly build into it, and let the economy figure it out on its own.
And there's even talk that if there were enough EVs on the system and a local power grid, that it's very possible that the local power grid couldn't even hold it. So I think there's other issues there that may not even have been thought about yet. So that's interesting. Glad y'all got that done. So 4 years ago and earlier, we were all worried about the CFPB and the regulations they were going to do to the buy here, pay here section of the car business. Where are we with the CFPB now? What does it look like moving forward, do you think? What can we do as dealers to not be threatened by that?
So I took it upon myself to proactively engage with the CFPB as well, especially with the new administration. So to give everybody a background, Rohit Chopra was pushed by the Biden administration to be confirmed to take over as the head of the CFPB. Right, his background came from FTC, pretty progressive in thought process. Wasn't well liked on both sides of the aisle from what I've been told. But he was being pushed from the FTC to take over the CFPB. Of course, his background again came from Senator Warren's office, stood up Dodd-Frank, which again stood up CFPB. Right. So as he was being pushed to be confirmed, in his Senate confirmation, it was basically voted in a tie, so that it sent it to the Senate floor. What we were hearing as that was going on was, well, now that the FTC has a 2-2 split, right, because it's a 5-person commission, the White House wanted to have a Democrat come in there as soon as possible. So they were pushing for Lena Khan, who has been confirmed, to take over the FTC. So now it's 3 Dems, 2 Republicans. After she would be confirmed, Rohit Chopra would then be pushed through confirmation. A lot of things have happened. Afghanistan has happened. Infrastructure has happened. Now this budget reconciliation is happening. And we're hearing throughout the process of his confirmation that some of his responses to his QFRs weren't well liked on some moderate Democrats' desks. And we're hearing rumors that he might not be confirmed any longer. Now, I don't know who's going to be replacing him, but I think where we could be we could proactively engage the agency as just meeting with them. We've set up quarterly calls with them, and just engaging with them, just so they feel comfortable reaching out to us, and they're not kind of regulating without reason, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, is regulating without reason. Sometimes we hear that a lot coming out of D.C., that especially with a leftist-leaning White House, that, well, let's just
find someone to get mad at.
Let's just do it. Let's throw this out there and see if it sticks. And we can't have that, because bad rules come from that. The FTC.
Yeah.
The FTC is the organization that kind of looks over our advertising, correct?
Right.
So dealers need to know how to advertise properly, and that's the reason we come to conventions and things like this. We just had a very progressive person put in as the head of the FTC, Khan, right?
Yep.
So where does that put us now? What can dealers do to make sure that we're doing it the right way, and how to stay off of her radar?
Sure. And I think it's going in and educating them, right, and telling our story. That's, if from my background and my perspective, that's the best way. And so we've set up, similar to CFPB, we've set up quarterly calls at their recommendation to talk with them. We have one coming up on the 26th of August, this week actually, and that's an introductory call. It'll probably last about an hour, and our board will be on it. Hopefully we'll have one coming in 2-3 months following that, just another follow-up call. We want to have that relationship. We want them to think of us as their regulator, right? I want to be able to be that person that they feel comfortable with reaching out to. And that's the best way you're able to get the inside scoop on it. Similar to the Hill, right? Yeah. A staffer, and I was on Capitol Hill for a number of years, a staffer isn't going to jump through hoops for you if you've met them 2 or 3 times within a year, right? If I'm meeting you for the first time as an introductory meeting, and then I don't talk to you or follow up with you for the next 4 months.
Or until I need you.
And then all of a sudden, month 5, I'm asking you to jump through, the ringer for me. You're not gonna want to do it for me.
What I like too, and I think it's your philosophy and Bob's, is when there is an issue, we have got to be the go-to for them. Yep. When they have a question on how this is going to affect used car dealers, they need to call us and not someone else.
Try to educate them,
yeah, even from a news standpoint, when Forbes wants to quote from how the used car industry is going to handle this thing, how are we not top of mind? And I think that's something you guys have a new focus on making the association the go-to source for info.
And I'm hoping, crossing fingers, that these calls through the Congress will, I had a mindset that these are small little pebbles and it'll start building into a rock and then it'll start going to a boulder, and that's where I'm hoping that, the more members that are on these calls, that are answering, they're asking questions, that are engaging with their representatives, will slowly be that authoritative voice. I want it. I mean, as much as I want to say I want it right now, I'm hoping we are right now. But I want those calls through the Congress, as well as doing regulatory calls, to be to be that person that they reach out to when they're having questions.
So with that being said, how can a dealer get involved beside the PAC? How can we try to get set up with a coffee with Congress for our area?
Happy to reach out to me. My email is at brett@niada.com. Feel free to reach me by email, phone call, carrier pigeon, whatever you guys want. I mean, I'm here for you guys.
Yeah, great. Anything else, Jeff?
That's it. That's awesome. Everyone take action. Guys, if you're listening to this in your car, in your office, wherever it is, send him an email.
And donate to the PAC.
Yes, and donate to the PAC.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So glad you joined us. Please take a minute to leave us a review and share this podcast with a friend. The Independent Dealer Podcast. Dealers helping dealers. so glad you joined us. Please take a minute to leave us a review and share this podcast with a friend. The Independent Dealer Podcast. Dealers helping dealers.